Trent has just released its residential home sales figures for 2010, which reflect about a 6% decrease over activity as compared to December of 2009. However, as most of you know, it's very difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison when you consider some of the factors that impacted the real estate market during the last year. We had the first-time homebuyer tax credit, as well as we saw stronger lending guidelines. So to help us put the year 2010 into context, I'd like to introduce Dave Davis. Dave, tell us a little bit about what happened in 2010.
Thank you, Vernon. Yeah, 2010 was a really unique year, and in fact, you really can't compare it to a normal year. And we probably haven't had a normal year in the last decade or so. But 2010 was really unique in that the first half of the year, while the tax credit was in effect, we had reasonably good sales. In fact, we were about 20% ahead of 2009 through June. Well, once the tax credit expired, sales just dropped off to a very low level and remained that way through the rest of the year. We ended 2010 being 8.4% below 2009 in terms of the actual sales, which is towards the better end of the projection that we had. We expected that we were going to be down about 8 to 10%. We ended up 8.4% below.
So Dave, you told us that sales for 2010 were about 8.5% down over 2009. How did we fare with pricing?
Well, pricing, of course, is the other really important consideration that we look at. And two ways that we look at pricing. One is the median price. Actually, the past 2 years, 2008, 2009, we experienced decreases in the median price, fairly significant decreases, and part of the concern was, well, how's pricing going to hold up in 2010? Actually, it held up very well, about equal, actually up about 0.2% over 2009, which is really pretty insignificant, but the important part is the median prices ended up stabilizing, that we know that in 2010 we had no price deterioration. When we looked at average prices too, the average sold price is up 2.6% above 2009.
So Dave, why is there such a disparity between the median price and the average price for 2010?
Good question. And what happens with the average prices? It's greatly influenced by the higher end market. 2009, as Vernon had mentioned, in 2009, actually the high-end market pretty much dried up. Jumbo mortgages were very difficult to get, very expensive, and the high-end market really languished in 2009. 2010, it's recovered a fair amount, and actually 2010 sales over 500,000 are up 12.3%. And that, of course, compares to the overall sales being down 8.4%. So you can see that the higher-end market, the 500,000 plus sales, have really pulled up the average significantly.
Dave, last month you introduced us to the concept of seasonally adjusted sales. How is that figure useful to the average realtor on the street?
Yeah, well, for one thing, that's what NAR reports, and probably a really good example was in November of this year. The actual sales nationally decreased from October to November, yet the press release was, well, sales are up 5.6%. Now, how does that happen? Well, it happens because of seasonally adjusting. Typical seasonal sales patterns are sales increase every month for the first half of the year and then typically decrease virtually every month in the second half of the year. So whether sales increased or decreased, or whether you would expect them to increase or decrease, depends on what part of the year you're in. And that's why NAR uses seasonally adjusted sales. And what they do is take a look at the normal distribution of sales throughout the year and take that into account. One of the things that it does is in the second half of the year, then you can see whether the market is getting stronger or declining. So the seasonally adjusted, very important factor. If you look at the second half of 2010, it was really very flat. But when you seasonally adjust those, both sales and pending sales, you find that the market has actually been gaining strength in the second half of the year. Kind of bottomed out in May at the end of the tax credit there, when you had to have your home under contract. Activity in the marketplace really bottomed out then in May. But it has actually been increasing 6 of the 7 months since then. We've seen an actual increase in pending sales after we've seasonally adjusted for normal expectations.
That's great news. So, Dave, what does your crystal ball predict for 2011? Are you that bold?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Hopefully everybody will forget about it by the time 2011's over. Yeah, 2011, and we have to look at two things. Again, sales. Based on what we've seen on the market actually strengthening, coming back to probably a more normal market, we would expect that we're going to continue that trend for a while. And a lot of it is going to depend on national economics, of course.
Sure.
Most economists are talking about where the economy is going to be adding about 2 million jobs in 2011. And if that happens, of course, that really is going to strengthen the housing market. So in terms of sales, every reason to expect that at this point we should be 8 to 10% higher than we are this year. In other words, we'll probably get back to about 2009 levels in terms of total overall sales in 2011. The other thing that we look at, of course, is pricing. And what's going to happen with prices in 2011? Well, you know, we went over it, stabilized in 2010, good news. But we always have to look at inventory. And we're really carrying a very high inventory at this point, although we've made significant progress in the last 2 months. 2 months ago, at the end of October, we were 11.5% above 2009. Now in December, just 2 months later, we have it down to where we're only 8.5% above December of 2009. That's still, of course, too high.
Sure.
What it's going to do is probably keep prices from really increasing at all in the first half of the year, just because of the inventory that we're carrying. So we're probably not going to see much price increase. It may be a little deterioration in pricing, a little price erosion, but insignificant. So prices should be stable through the first half of the year. But based on the market continuing to gather strength through the first half of the year, we can probably look for some increase in overall prices in 2011, maybe as much as 1% going up overall for the entire year.
Great news, Dave.